welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Precious and thank you so much for being here today. So today is another episode on our South Africans Abroad series, but we are going to do something special. It's the Studying Abroad edition. And I feel like this video is really going to help somebody out there at some point in their life when they do decide to look into studying abroad programs, right? So this might be useful to someone today, tomorrow, in the next 6 months, or even in the next year. I am very sure of that, and if that's you, please do click like, subscribe, comment, let me know if this is you. But I do know that someone is going to find some sort of value in this video, and if that is you, I'm so happy, and that's why I do this. So without further ado, thank you so much. If you have not subscribed, please do subscribe, guys. All right, so today we're having a chat with Onneile, who is studying abroad, studying overseas, furthering her studies away from home, and she was doing so in Japan. So let's hear her story, let's hear her journey. Hi Onneile, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you are having a fantastic, scrumptious year so far. So let's get into it. Please introduce yourself. Where in South Africa are you originally from?
My name is Onneile. I am 20, turning 21 literally in a few days. By the time this probably comes out, I would have already had my birthday. I'm from Joburg. I'm currently actually home visiting my family also for my birthday as well, which is really lovely. I've missed them quite a bit.
So please tell us, how long have you been in Japan? How many years, months, weeks?
I moved to Japan in October 2022, so like last year. I literally got there the day my course was starting.
So Onneile, please let us know, what are you studying and how long is your program for?
That I got to Japan and started was a Japanese language course. It was 6 months, just as a bit of an intro, because I literally got to Japan with no Japanese whatsoever. So I did that 6 months, which finished in March, and then now I've come home just to visit, and then I will be going back obviously to start the next phase of my Japanese language course. That will be at Kansai University, the Bekka program, and then after that I will be going into do my tertiary studies in psychology.
We would love to know, how did you hear about this amazing opportunity? And congratulations, by the way, congratulations. And just how did you learn about it, or how did you go about finding out information to even start to apply to the program in the first place?
How I heard about the opportunity, my mom and I, just like honestly since I can remember, I feel like because I wasn't born in this country, I was born in England and came here when I was younger, but because I wasn't born in this country, I always felt like, we need to keep it pushing, I'm gonna be born one place, I'm gonna grow up and be raised in one place, and then when it's time to, flutter the wings, then I'm going to move on. Just for a bit to go study. So I'd already been looking into studying abroad, and originally I was planning on studying in Mauritius. I wanted to go straight into my tertiary and start psychology in Mauritius. There were a few good schools that I was looking at and that I'd applied to, and also one of the other schools in the UK that I'd actually already gotten into and like sort of started about that, all for psychology as well. And then literally, my mom and I were still researching as much as things were happening, and Japan just came out of nowhere, to be very honest with you. It came out of nowhere. It was nowhere on my radar. It wasn't ever a thought. Asia as a whole just wasn't really a thought. So Japan came about, and I honestly was so excited because I was like, how many people think of going to Japan, And if there's one thing about me, I love to be challenged. I love to put myself beyond my boundaries to continue growing. I love to be be in places that make me uncomfortable to grow as well, but also I just love adventure. A lot of people who know me will tell you that I really will go do the craziest things, and I really would say moving across the world to Japan like out of the blue is one of them, because I literally found out about the language course in April and April last year, yeah, and then I was in Japan in October, so it was a very fast process. It was a very fast decision, but yeah, I'm so grateful for it because I honestly love the country. I love the culture. Yeah, it's just amazing.
There are a plethora of study abroad programs that our government assists with, that our government advertises every single day. Why did you choose Japan?
So in terms of why I decided on Japan, because I already had all these options. I think it was a few things, and obviously moving abroad was one of them, but I think Japan was such a polar opposite to what I'd grown up to where I was born. It was just completely different in culture and language, in the way they live life and the way they study as well. And this obviously came through quite a bit of research. But one thing about me as well is that I believe research will only get you so far. You need to go experience it. So yeah, but also like because I'm sort of in that studying phase, I needed to look into how their courses were looking for what I was wanting to get into, and just the working environment for psychology and things like that. And the more research I did, I got very excited because I just think Japanese culture is very interesting, and anybody who moves to Japan as a foreigner will really see that. I don't even know how to put much of it into words, if I have to be completely honest with you, but I just feel like if there's one thing I appreciated so much about Japan as well, coming from South Africa, is that they're very cultural, they're very traditional as well, but at the same time like progressing. The technology is moving forward, it is all of that. So I was very interested and curious to go see how that balance between like tradition and, you know, modernism and progression was coming about and living and breathing, you know, and not in an environment that I was used to. Because I mean, you can always go to places like the US or Australia and places like that and still get these same experiences, but I think it was always that element of needing something completely different that really drew me to Japan.
So this is a very, very important topic because it affects everyone on any level in terms of financially or of any tax bracket, right? So financially, does your program support you? Do they subsidize anything? Do they pay for everything? So how does that work financially? And also, are you able to live comfortably on a student budget in Japan?
So in terms of finances, just to give a bit of a brief on the nose description, I am not on scholarship. And yeah, a lot of people do get a bit shocked when you tell them that. And it's so funny when you meet other foreigners, like one of the first questions they ask you is, are you on a scholarship? But no, I am not. Thank God for my mother. I mean, so my mother and I are sort of working hand in hand to pay for everything, for expenses and all of that. But she has really taken most of the financial impact in terms of paying for tuition and things like that, and then the daily living expenses I sort of come in with the job that I have, because I do still have my job that I was doing in South Africa, even if you are on scholarship. But I think scholarship does help, but even friends of mine as well who are on scholarship are still getting part-time jobs. So
I would love to know, because you applied to study abroad in a non-English speaking country, do you have to know Japanese to be able to study there? And even your language of studies, do you have to know Japanese?
in terms of knowing Japanese or having to know Japanese to study here, I would highly recommend it. I think for me, when I was doing research into my courses, because I originally wanted to go straight into psychology, but all the psychology courses that I was wanting to do are in Japanese. And then so there are a few courses and like exchange program courses that will be in English, or there will be like certain schools that have like their full degrees in English. But I feel like for what I specifically wanted to do and what I want to do with my education in terms of work afterwards and things like that, I sort of needed to just bite the dust and learn the language. But I feel like to study, it really depends on the course that you want to do. Even if you don't need the Japanese, learn it. It is such a beautiful language. It's a very exciting language to learn as well. I genuinely am enjoying the process of learning it, which is why I'm also not like stressed about the timeline that I have to learn the language before getting into school as well. Also because I like to do things properly, you know. If I'm gonna do it, let me do it right. Let me take it all the way, you know. So yeah, I really am planning to take my Japanese all the way to N1, N2 if possible. But yeah, right now I'm sitting at my N4 level. And yeah, we'll see how far I can go. I'm hoping that in the next year I can possibly take it to N2, God willing. And then that last year I'd like to spend on my N1 and just get it done properly. And then just so that I can also be comfortable, because my course is really in Japanese. So I'll probably only have like 1 or 2 English modules. So yeah, I think for the safety and the survival of my academic lifespan, I need to learn the language. So yeah.
So please paint a picture for us. How different is studying in Japan versus studying in South Africa, either as an undergraduate or as a graduate student?
If I had to compare the two just in terms of environment, Japan was definitely a big shift. I feel like in homeschooling, I had to learn a lot of discipline just to make sure that I'm actually getting the work done and getting my assignments done and studying and properly and things like that. So I feel like discipline-wise, it still didn't match to when I got to Japan. Because wow, yeah, just in the school environment in Japan, they're very, I think as I said earlier, on the nose with their education. Things like they mark attendance, and especially as a foreign student, they do mark your attendance, and that will contribute to whether you get visa extensions, etc. It contributes when you're applying to work, they're looking at your attendance, things like that. So they're looking at attendance, they're looking at your marks, but it's really make sure you're keeping up to the standard of work that the school holds, and keep to it. Just make sure you're passing and you're doing well. But I think in Japan as well, say that South African education, just looking at it in comparison to the world now, because now I'm meeting so many other people from different countries and continents and different educational backgrounds, I would say that South African tertiary, just in theory and what we're learning for specific courses and things like that, is really solid. And just the educational basis, the people who are professors and things like that are actually known, you know. Like the medical field, wow, yeah, South Africa is doing pretty well in terms of what they're offering education wise. I do think that the institutions may be where the issue is, and just the country in general may also contribute to that quite a bit. So yeah, I do think that South African education unfortunately is impacted by what's happening in the country and just a lot of different factors. But the education itself, just hearing what other people are saying, seeing and comparing as well, it is actually really solid. It's very well rounded, and a lot of what we learn in like institutions in South Africa, you can take around the world and find a solid job. I guess one thing that I would say South Africa has a downfall, I mean, we know about the youth unemployment rates and just the lack of knowledge as to whether you'd find a job whether you'd even find a job after you finish school. I think one thing that the Japanese are doing right is that like they're making sure that you are getting into work, you are getting into the working force, you are finding something solid by the time you finish school. So they are very hands-on with giving aid to that from like the second year. I've got friends of mine who are like pushing job applications and internships, you know, so they're very hands-on with making sure that the students get into work after their education, which I think is quite amazing.
Can you please tell us some advice for someone at home, sitting at home watching this video? Any advice you have about choosing a study abroad program, or even just how to go about it?
In terms of choosing a program and doing research, make sure that the program you're choosing matches a timeline that makes sense for you budget-wise, emotionally, and mentally. It's very important that you don't overextend yourself when you travel, especially traveling to live overseas, because I think it's one thing that people don't like to talk about enough, is that when you travel overseas, especially alone, it can take a huge emotional and mental toll on you. And another thing, that when you talk to other people who live overseas, they'll tell you traveling is addicting. It's literally a whole new addiction, but it's such a passionate addiction as well. Literally, I would put it in the same group as piercings, and I mean, you can see me as piercings and tattoos. Like once you move abroad and live abroad, it's another thrill, it's another type of experience that you really can't get enough of. I would say make sure that you are planning your timelines wisely, and be very open to having where you're studying now not being the end goal in terms of where you study, because you might look at this program now and go to this program, but then another country and another program starts to look good as well. So make sure you finish your program, but do research if you're trying to move on to another program or try to do your studies in another country as well. But research, I feel like for studying, research is so important. Like, make sure that the school matches just your beliefs and what you want to study and how you want to study, the sort of support that you need, the sort of support and assistance that is provided. Very important. When you're talking to the school, ask every and all questions that you feel you need to ask. Don't be shy. Ask questions. Also, I would suggest reach out to people who are in the country as well. Like I did with Precious. I literally messaged her just before I moved, because I was watching a lot of your videos just to prepare for moving, you know. Watch videos, reach out to people, and I literally asked, like, what should I pack, you know, things I should prepare, things I should bring. Ask all questions, talk to people who are already in the country and can give you sort of a personal touch on things that you should be aware of and get ready for. But in terms of choosing the program, just make sure, especially if you're going into your master's or your PhD, make sure that for the courses you're getting into, that the senseis or the teachers or professors that are provided for you sort of match what you're trying to accomplish with your studies. Make sure that the school is matching that as well. Make sure that it's budget friendly, not just in terms of school fees, but the school fees in connection to living expenses. Find out all things. Can you get a part-time job? You know, how would housing work out? Transport as well. Look into transport. I think it's just very important that when you're picking a study abroad program, don't only look at the school, look at the country and what your experience may potentially be like in that other country.
Do you recommend furthering one's studies away from home? Do you recommend that if I want to study economics, or if I want to pursue my postgraduate, my PhD, my master's, is it a good idea to do it abroad, overseas, not in South Africa?
Okay, so I will say, in terms of advice, and like, do I recommend going to study abroad? 100%. I can't even explain in words how eye-opening the experience is. You need to leave your country at some point if it is possible. But in that, look at sponsorships, look at scholarships, see if you can make it happen, because a lot of schools and companies do offer this as well. Look for work, volunteering, school, au pairing, like just look around, and don't go for like 2 weeks. Like if you can really go for like a month, 2 months, go live within the culture. It's so eye-opening. And I think one thing I would always tell my friends who are now starting to move overseas, because one of the things I heard the most when leaving was, oh, always remember where home is, always remember where home is. And that's so important. But remember where home is, but be very ready for home to expand. And for home to expand, that takes a lot of growth. It takes a lot of self-awareness, because when they say home is where the heart is, trust, I honestly feel that, because I got to Japan and the people I met very quickly turned from people to acquaintances to friends to family, and they have become a new extension of home. And I feel like even after I finished studying in Japan and moved to the next country, because I do plan to go to another country after Japan, I'm so ready to go through that experience again. I think moving overseas, meeting people who have grown up a different way, who have been exposed to a different set of rules in life, it's the most eye-opening experience you could ever ask for. It's beyond amazing. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. If you can, do it. Do it. Do it.
Finally, we have reached the end of our episode. We have reached the end of our feature. Onneile, thank you so much for being such a great well of knowledge, and as well as giving us some insight into this. So where can people find you online? If we want to see your life abroad, if we have any questions to ask you, where can we find you? Where can we get in touch with you?
Like, what you're doing with this channel is just amazing. It's opening so many eyes. I mean, it opened my eyes. It was one of the last deciding factors for me moving to Japan, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you, because I was just so appreciative of seeing South Africans doing their thing, like as we should. I mean, go see the world, honey, go see the world. But yeah, it's just been so amazing. Thank you so much. In terms of where people can find me on social media, on Instagram, it is onzei.n. That is ONZEI.n. And then my Twitter is ONZEI_N. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But if anybody wants to get in contact, if you're also thinking of moving and things like that, definitely, if you feel like you want to hit me up, by all means, you are more than welcome. I'd be more than happy to help in the best way that I can. But yeah, go see the world. That's the last thing I have to say. Go see the world. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your year. So everybody, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for staying up until the end. If you did, please give this video a like. Please do subscribe, and if you have any more questions for me, please write them down below in the description, in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear if you enjoyed these questions. I would love to hear if you learned anything, right? And guys, if you know of someone who might find this video useful, please share it with them. Please, they can ask me questions. My Instagram and my DMs are always open for questions related to the South Africans Abroad series, related to YouTube, related to the JET program, or living abroad, as much as I know and I can. And also, guys, if you need help with your documents, if you need help proofreading and also editing any copy, any documents you may have, I will help you. Extra eyes, extra hands, I will help you. So please drop me an email on my email below. It's linked. And also, let's chat. Follow me on social media. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I hope to see you again in the next video.